Welcome to A Photographer's Life, the channel that takes you behind the curtain into the world of professional architectural photography. Join us now for an episode with some of America's premier architectural photographers. Today's broadcast comes from a recent Zoom meeting of the Association of Independent Architectural Photographers. This discussion is led by AIAP Director Alan Blakely. We hope you enjoy the show. If you do, please let us know by liking this episode and subscribing to this channel. Now, on with the show.
All right, welcome everyone. We're here on the December 2024 meeting of the AIAP, and want to welcome everybody who's joined us this morning. And we're talking about kind of the year in review and looking forward to 2025. And I just wanted to start out with just kind of some information about some research that I was doing in preparation for this podcast. And I've come to the conclusion that there's not any statisticians out there or government agencies or financial institutions that have any idea what architectural photography is. Because,
is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Maybe it's a good thing. I don't know. Because the information I found had nothing whatever to do with being self-employed as an architectural photographer. All of the information out there, all the statistics and reporting that had been done, and this was from government agencies as well as Nielsen surveys and Forbes and on and on and on about the photography industry. Even Professional Photographers of America looked at architectural photography as a salaried position. So, which has no relevance to what we do, because those positions are so few and far between and pay so little. And as a result, for the information for those who are actually looking to go into architectural photography, they could have found out by that information that I recovered that they could expect to earn between $18 and $21 an hour. And so maybe that's why there's not a lot of people that are venturing into this. I don't know, but it was pretty disheartening. So what I looked at instead was what our clientele was projecting for the year. And that was actually pretty encouraging. And so I just wanted to kind of share with you a little bit about what the clientele that we do business with is looking for. And this came from Standard & Poor's and from Deloitte and Forbes and American Institute of Architects. And just kind of in a nutshell, everybody was projecting about an 8.5% growth for 2025, which is great. That's really encouraging. And that the most significant gains are expected to be in, this was a surprise to me, was in military projects. And I'm not sure if that's upgrading bases, if there's, part of the budget's been earmarked for that already. And the second highest was in senior living. So the senior living was expected to take almost a 37% increase in 2025, which is massive. Now, for me personally, senior living has been a big part of the business for quite a while, and it's not hard stuff to shoot. Generally, it's good architecture, at least for the firms that I do business with, and so that was good. Commercial architecture was a little softer, at about 7%. One thing that was a nice surprise was that residential building was projected for like a 12% increase. And that's something we haven't seen for a number of years now, is an increase in residential. And for some of us, at least high-end residential, is a nice part of the business. Those are fun projects to shoot. I really enjoy those. And so, as an overall picture, I think this looks pretty good for architectural photography for 2025. And some of these projections were pre-election, some were post-election, and they pretty much all said the same thing. So I think that was really encouraging. So but I'm still puzzled as to the fact that there's nobody out there that really knows what we do.
That's really interesting. You talk about, I remember looking, it might have been a year or two ago. I Googled architectural photographers and you get this, average salary. And you're right,
Yeah.
it's like 18 to $26,000 or something,
Yeah.
which is, I mean, no one can survive on that. I mean, I don't know how anybody's doing anything, but I think we've had since like 2019, things were a little bit soft. We were,
Mhm.
we're doing three and a half times the numbers we were doing back in 2019. So it's been
Yeah.
really good, and it keeps going up. I think we've done about 90 projects this year. It's been a busy year for us. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I've had,
exactly.
5 or 6 really amazing years in a row. And
Yeah, it's been
even
really nice.
2020, it was soft for a couple months and then it jumped right back. And so that was great. Yeah, it was interesting. The Department of Labor, as far as their statistics, they looked at who was, I don't know how they got the reporting. I don't know what the sample was or how they arrived at the sample, but they were showing a lot of retirees were getting into architectural photography. I suspect that's real estate photography that they're really talking about.
That's what I was going to mention, the crossover there, and that's why the fees are stated at a pretty low rate.
Yeah,
And
I think so.
And let me correct myself, guys. I did 73 this year, not 90.
That's still a lot.
Felt like 90.
I mean, by all accounts.
Felt like 90, yeah.
Yeah, but I was surprised at Nielsen because in the 80s and 90s, I used to be on that Nielsen photographers panel where you'd have to report. I don't know if anybody else was in that. You got a little blue diary every month, and you had to fill out, your projects and how many exposures you made, and what the film type was, and so how many sheets of film, how many rolls of film, how many sheets of Polaroid, and all this. And you did this diary, and then you sent it into Nielsen, and that was back when the Photo Marketing Association was more concerned about professionals, and that was who most of the reporting was going to. That's changed dramatically. Nobody cares anymore from PMA. I don't know. Did anybody ever go to PMA, the big trade show? Yeah, I used to go to PMA. It's not the same thing anymore. In fact, it doesn't even resemble the same thing anymore. It's all about amateurs and the consumer market. But years ago, that wasn't the case.
Well, that's always where the money is for the camera, at least the camera manufacturers and the lens people. Maybe not the accessories, but they, Canon and Nikon with their Legends, I think Nikon Legends, and it was pitched. It looked like it was pitched towards professionals, but the bulk of the buyers by far are amateurs and prosumer kind of things, and that's fine. I mean, cameras. It's a good camera. It's a good camera.
Yeah. But it seems like early on in digital, there was kind of a push to get professionals on board. And so a lot of the features and the cameras themselves, they were competing for that professional market. And I'm wondering if maybe that was because they were going to see a trickle down. I'm not sure. I think now there's less of an offering for professionals. I know Fuji is doing a big push right now to try to keep their medium format products afloat. Maybe most of you have, I don't know if any of you or most of you have heard from Fuji just recently. They're trying to cut some deals and promote their product, but
yeah, they've got some pretty decent deals going on right from the manufacturer. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some pretty staggering deals actually, even from the likes of Hasselblad and other medium format offerings. And then one statistic I did see, which was really kind of strange, was the fact that there are expected to be a bunch of new tilt shift lenses for mirrorless cameras introduced within the next 2 years. So
Are those brand specific?
those are Nikon and Canon and Sony.
Well, they have to change because mirrorless just requires a different. They're going to be smaller.
Yeah, it's a
lenses are
different
small.
lens design entirely.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of Sony mirrorless, the newer 7R4s, and I still like my 850 and 900s better. I hate mirrorless. I don't like the
Why?
viewfinder.
What's wrong with mirrorless?
I don't like the viewfinder.
There we go.
There are some pretty good viewfinders out there, to be
Yeah,
fair.
it's got a decent viewfinder. I mean, it's rated really high. I just don't care for it.
There's some newer ones that actually are. I like Canon's newest, like the R1. That viewfinder is a great viewfinder.
Is that what you're shooting, Alan?
I'm not.
Yeah,
I do not have a mirrorless camera. I had a Fuji medium format system, and I couldn't
know,
get
you
rid of it fast enough. But and I was really, I really invested into that, but it just did not work for me. And Canon, supposedly they've got an R1X. I don't know if any of you heard about that camera. It's supposed to be 80 megapixels. And, the latest thing I heard from the rumor mill was that it was third quarter of 25 that it was going to ship. Who knows?
Well, I've had people ask me, assume looking at my work that I shoot with medium format because of the kind of inherent 3D sharpness. I don't know. It's all subjective. But I think, Alan, I think you and I both shoot the 5DS DSR, right?
Yeah.
So there's no anti-aliasing filter in front of it. You can get those used now for about $1,000 with very little.
Yeah, they're so cheap.
They're spectacular files off of this thing. So, it's the anti-aliasing filter or the lack of it, excuse me, that makes it so damn sharp.
Yeah.
So, that's half of what the perception is of what you need. It's the files are gigantic. They're 50 megapixel. So, I think it's nice to have the bigger megapixel, but I think everybody agrees dynamic range is more important,
I think so too. Yeah. And there's that 5DSR, they quit making it, but I just noticed recently that they pushed a bunch of backstock into the market, and there's some of the retailers are offering new bodies now. And they're still, I think they're under $2,000 for a new body.
Okay. Yeah, they were or 38 or something.
Like $4,500 new, and that was 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Alan, I just wanted to circle around to what the original conversation that you wanted to have today. And I was out walking the dog for a few minutes before, and just thinking about which topics on my mind coming into the new year, be my 44th year of shooting. And now it's been like this for the last, 3 or 4 years, as far as work and life balance. Okay. I've got the 5 grandkids. They're all in the area. Grandpa, why are you going to go take pictures? What's more important? This has come from my 6-year-old. And then my wife, she works, she's a flight attendant. So flies about, I don't know, 2 days a week sometimes. Anyway, so she's saying, honey, we're not getting any younger. We're all in pretty good health. And so Norm is talking about how many shoots he's doing, 73 a year. Now, do we want to do that many? I mean, everybody's in a different place, right? As far as what their priorities are. But as we get a little older, we don't want to look back and say, okay, it's great. I got a great portfolio, but what did I leave? What's my legacy as a human and with my friends and family? So that's that was going through my mind this morning when I was walking the dog. And it's more than just clicking the shutter. It's, hey, what are we looking back at? So I think it's a good way to reflect at the end of this year and as we go into the next year. And we're all in different ages, but I'm 66 and I still have the passion for shooting, but there's only so much time in the day to split up with family.
Thanks, David. Very important redirect, and I appreciate that. I'm kind of at the same place you are. We're the same age, and I feel the same way. And it's getting harder and harder to justify being busier and busier, at least for me. And there's only, at the end of the day, how much billing is enough billing, and how much billing is too much billing. And I, you know, I've got some clients and in places where we've shot people of massive wealth, and one of the things that one guy said to me that really stuck with me is like, just because you can buy something doesn't mean you should. And how much, um, I've got enough money, but only too much. And so I don't know, like quality of life. This is not an easy business. This is not a 9 to 5 by any means, and especially if you're working as an individual. And like I said at the outset, we're all self-employed generally in this business, and that's kind of a hard thing to juggle. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
you look at us, and we're all about the same age. Darius and Douglas are probably the young guys here, but yeah, I love what I do. I still look forward. And I'm not kidding. I look every day. I look forward to going to work. I love what I do, and it's and I was talking to Alan before we started. I said, the I love being swamped. I love the chaos. I love I like the pressure.
I would like to be swamped. I would like to be swamped. If anyone wants to send some work to the Midwest, that would be great.
Where you located at, Douglas?
I'm in St. Louis,
Okay. All right.
but
Well, in
I
the
like to travel.
Chicago area here, I mean, there's work for everybody. There's so much work, it's ridiculous. So,
Well, we're just getting back to our work-life balance, and we started. I don't know when you guys started, but I started at a young age coming out of school, and we get hungry after those years of being up and down. So you say, it's like I can never have too much work. So it's kind of in our DNA. So like Norman's saying, I get excited when people call, like, as far as a shoot. If I got to shoot this time of year, the weather's not great, so things kind of slow down, especially near the holidays. But again, based on my lifestyle and kind of sharing the time in other places or with other people, that's important. Now, I also do a lot of stock photography. So during this winter months, I kind of unplug from assignments and do stock, and then in different, maybe sunnier locations, and then build up my portfolio. Because part of my semi-retirement when I'm over 70 is a model is to do more stock. And I've been doing stock since 97. It's not what it used to be, but I still do it. So I enjoy the stock because it's kind of like fishing. You're going out, finding some new areas to shoot, seeing what's biting out there in the market. So it's a little bit like gambling, get a little adrenaline from it too. So I enjoy stock photography.
I don't think I could ever just give it up. And I don't know about being fully retired and just not, shutting my business down completely. I mean, I backed off the pedal a lot, but there's still that, that thing in the back of your mind that says
you were plenty busy this year. You
I know, but
all over the place.
But you still have that thought about when you're, from when you're younger, that if I don't take this job, I'm going to be broke.
You're hungry. Forget that.
Yeah.
I had an email exchange with Norman McGrath, who's 93, and he said, I'm 93, I'm still working. I don't think he's going out and shooting every day, but Norman, if you're watching, maybe you are, I don't know. But, why not?
For me, the photography is a perfect life balance thing, in the fact that I had a long architecture career that was very intense. I loved it, but it was very intense. And I purposely went into the photography with the idea of backing off and relaxing a little. And we have a very big family, and we've lived all over the country. So I have friends and family all over the United States. And every photography job that we get, it's just me. But when I travel, my wife always goes with me, and we make a trip out of it. Wherever I get an assignment, see, I don't care that much about how much money I make for the gig. If the gig pays for the trip that my wife and I enjoy, and I come back and I break even, it's almost okay. Now, I've never not made a profit, But at the same time, I don't care how much I make because I'm gonna enjoy the free trip with my wife. Like I have one client that gives me about 10 jobs every February. It's all over the state of Florida. And we just make a loop around Florida based on where the jobs are. And I have 2 kids and 3 other family members that live all over the state. And we visit everybody and we stay at a fancy hotel somewhere and we have nice dinners and come back, and I've made good money and we've been out for a week having fun. That's how I balance it.
We have the greatest job in the world.
We do.
We do. There's no question about it. Being
And
able to set your
especially-
schedule and I mean, it's the greatest job in the world.
Especially if you love distinctive architecture and you want to photograph it and preserve it.
Yeah.
How could you have a better job?
I would call what I have a work-life imbalance, and meaning that there is no balance. It's all kind of work, but as we've been talking about, it doesn't really feel like work because I love what I do.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't have a family really, so I just give it all to photography, whether it's paid photography or like what David does, just go out and shoot. I like your fishing analogy because some days I come back with nothing really exciting, and other days I'm just can't wait to get to that computer to load them up and look at them.
Yeah. I mean, speaking to Douglas' point though about, maybe, getting more busy and where to get more busy, I think there's some real opportunities right now. And we talked about this a little bit in our last meeting about, showing up and contacting people directly. But these sectors that we talked about, the senior housing and multifamily, I mean, there's huge business to be had there. And it's just kind of a process of finding out who's doing that, either in your local area or nationally, and then going after those, make it a very targeted list about going after those particular companies. And that does work. Even just asking for a consideration on a job that's upcoming, or you see see a building start somewhere, or you hear an announcement in Engineering News Record or Architects Newsletter or newspaper or something like that. Make contact.
Or your local newspaper.
Or the newspaper. Exactly.
I mean, if you want to get hired, pick up the phone and call somebody.
Yeah.
This texting and emailing and people have lost the human connection. And if you can have a conversation with somebody and have them look at your portfolio, and I mean, you'd be surprised. That goes a long way. Just pick up the phone and call somebody.
One of what we just had here, and I'm sure in your guys' states or regions you have that is as an opportunity, is the AIA award ceremonies. I'm an associate member, and I guess like Glenn, maybe I train and practice as an architect and then gave it up to do this. So but that's a great opportunity. I always meet people and see people that I've already done work for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that networking is invaluable.
I think it's worth noting how many architectural photographers I know of who were trained and even worked as architects. It's a much larger percentage of, I don't know what other kind of photography there would be where you'd have that kind of connection.
Well, they might, over the years, definitely for architects getting into our business, but also lawyers that get burnt out in their profession, they turn to photography. That's probably the second to architects.
Well, I know a bunch of people went the other way. People that started out as photographers and became lawyers.
I know.
I know a lot of them.
Oh yeah, that's
Okay.
in fact my attorney. That's what my attorney turned out like that way.
I also know attorneys who burned out several women who became school teachers.
Wow.
So whatever. Nobody has the same job anymore, like our parents' generation might have.
No, I'll say not. And I think for us as a group, that there seems to be this aversion just to working for somebody else, period, and having to show up and answer to somebody else.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I'm completely unemployable. Forget about my temperament. If you looked at my resume, such as it is, you go, well, who am I going to call? There's nobody to call. You're going to call my clients. These are temporary relationships. So,
yeah. It could be your personality too, right?
Oh, it's totally my personality. So
you're so candid. I mean,
I'll never deny it. Yeah, well, it's a problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
I want to comment on the residential market.
Yeah.
I started out by creating 5 different coffee table books, Distinctive Homes of America, like Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, and Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida, and that sort of thing. So I was photographing high-end houses, and I loved it, and I would still like to do some of it, but with the competition of the guys who photograph 5 real estate listings a day for $150 a piece, when you start to talk to a builder about his $5 million house and me photographing it, they're always shocked by how much I would like to have, because I'm going to spend 2 days in the house photographing it. And I've somewhat given up on that. If someone calls me about it, I would love to jump all over it, but I'm just not going after the high-end home builders anymore, because they don't want to pay any money for the photography. A real estate guy is just fine with them. So what I've kind of replaced that with is I'm going after, besides all the commercial, I'm pursuing building components. And by that, I mean like the glass manufacturers, that do the skin of the building, the guys that do real fancy woodwork inside buildings, and, those types of people. And I'm going to get into the distinctive buildings that I want to get in, and I'm going to have some killer photography, and I'm going to get paid for it.
Yeah, those are the guys that will make money off of the photos.
Yeah, they're going to make
the real estate guys and builders are just wanting to sell them.
Yeah. We do a lot of high-end homes, residential's and we probably shoot more residential than anything. And we work with some interior designers. If you get into the high-end interior designers, they are willing to pay because they don't want real estate photography. They want the good stuff. And then and the architects usually follow suit too. And we've got a nice list of high-end builders that we work with that they pay our rates. I mean, we're not inexpensive by any means, and they pay our rates, and we work hard for them, but they appreciate the product. So I think I'm not saying it's everybody. The guy that's doing the subdivision is not the guy I go shoot for, but the guy building the custom home in Highland Park, or Lake Forest or Barrington. I mean, we do a lot of work for people like that, or in Chicago, the Gold Coast.
We talked about this with the real estate photography, bringing the rates very low, quick turnaround next day, and we take a long time to get our images for magazine quality. But as far as interior designers, they'll pay their rate. But Norman, it depends on what market you're in. Chicago,
people I agree.
Portland, it's a little softer market. I go up to Seattle and shoot in Bellevue up there. But I'm so frustrated with the business model that these real estate photographers are forced to charge based on the realtors who are making tens of thousands of dollars for a sale of a house, and they're paying them $250 to $500 to shoot it. So, and that's not going to be changing anytime soon. So that's just something we have to get used to. These real estate photographers, and they're good guys. They're not bad guys. They're just young kids getting out there to make a living. But it's really sucking prices down overall. And they're also now getting into stock photography. So they know they can make pretty good money. They obviously have to get a release from the homeowner, but I've seen that flood in the market with real estate quality photos for stock photography.
There's a few larger real estate photography companies too that are really bent on just kind of diluting certain markets, resort markets and things like that. I'd like to mention them by name, but I probably shouldn't. Anyways,
email me, I'll mention it.
we know who they are and where they live.
Yeah, we know who they are. But for instance, I'm near Park City. Utah, and I live in a resort town as well, and we've got ski resorts with high-end homes. I get virtually no high-end real estate locally. And the reason is because they're using these real estate photography companies who are charging under $500 to shoot homes that are, on average between $5 and $50 million homes.
Yeah.
And I get a call from a real estate agent who may think he wants to hire somebody else because he's not happy with the photographs he just got back the next day. And I tell him my rate, and he's just flabbergasted. He can't imagine paying that much money, even though, he's getting a 6% commission on the sale of this house. So it's a really frustrating market. And so I don't market to the high-end builders anymore at all, or that real estate. But that was my bread and butter when I first started out shooting 4x5 film. But as soon as digital came along, it just started to dwindle, and it's pretty much zero now.
I have to put together a proposal this afternoon for a structural engineer. He has Diddley for a website. His website says under construction, and I've already photographed about 15 of his buildings for other people. And then he has about another 30 buildings that I could real easily do. But they charge the engineers, they're all charging anywhere from $180 to $300 an hour for their services. And they think somehow I'm going to give them each building for $100 or less or something. So this afternoon, I have to make a case for why I'm kind of worth the photography I put on their website for them is worth a lot more than they think it's worth.
Yeah, architectural photographer. I mean, you're looking, you got to be at least $250 an hour if someone's paying an hourly rate.
Well, I'm glad you brought up something interesting too that I think is worth mentioning. The fact that this podcast will be listened to later by other people. The fact that manufacturers is a huge market for us, architectural products. If you don't take Architectural Products magazine, it's free. You probably ought to get that trade magazine because that's a huge source of leads. I mean, in 2009, when things went south, my wife and I used to sit and look at, go through the Architectural Products magazine and pull leads to contact manufacturers, and it worked. And those have been some of our best clients over the years, manufacturers. They pay the highest fee that we can, we charge, and they're loyal, and they send us all over the place, and then we add extra days, and that's always fun. So that's a great source of revenue, because the licensing for a manufacturer who's using it for advertising, that's different than licensing for a builder or something like that. So, and Barry, you brought this up in the past about advertising versus, architectural licensing, and how we shouldn't mix the two, or how the two are so different. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, sometimes you get hired up front, but I just bid on or did a proposal for a job that I'd already shot, and I sent them an extremely fair price and haven't heard a word. So I think that that's not likely to happen. But it was a window company, and window companies are kind of notorious for, they have so much content flooding at them through their customers that the idea of actually paying a professional photographer's rates for advertising, forget about assignment, just secondary licensing is not going to work. But I want to go back, if I could, just for a second, to real estate photography. I mean, real estate photography is what it is. It's never going to change. It's a business model that works for the realtors and the brokers. So why should they pay more? It doesn't make sense to pay more if it's working for them. However, as a training ground for young photographers who are trying to get a portfolio together, it's pretty invaluable. And I did it also in the early days, and a lot of the houses I shot were not terribly interesting, were not portfolio worth, but every now and then I'd get one photo out of a house. and that would, slowly help build it, because it's all about access. So yeah, you're supposed to be there for an hour, hour and a half, but if you take an extra 10 minutes to do a room or to do the front of a house or something like that, and you get that photo, that is a career builder. It helps, interior, outside. I mean, the problem inside is, unless it's a fancy house and they've left the furniture, it's staged, and the staging quality is kind of variable. Sometimes it's okay, and sometimes it's just ugly. So it's the luck of the draw. But I'm thinking about this now because I have an assistant who's trying to move out of doing that. She's a wonderful.
Like I got paid to shoot the Polynesian resort at Disney World for a manufacturer of a ceiling product. Well, when I was there, I shot the whole Polynesian just about, and there's some nice pictures of the Polynesian in my portfolio. I didn't get paid to shoot them, but I did get paid to shoot for this one product. And I got on property, and it was a big deal to get on property with my camera and be able to have freedom of the place to take the pictures. That was a big deal at the Polynesian. I'd like to know, David, how do you get stock photography? I have yet to be paid for one stock photo.
What's the question? So how do you get stock photography outside of?
Well, I mean, I have yet to be paid for one stock photo. I was wondering how you get started in stock photo sales.
Well, I started real quick in nutshell, like I said, in '97 with my food portfolio for a company called Digital Stock, and then they sold to Corbis. Okay, and so a lot of and then Corbis got sold to Getty. But back in the day, I would shoot for like Oregon Home Magazine. I get the homeowner to sign a release, and we'd sell those photos on stock. So you have to go through Getty, Shutterstock, iStock, a few others, and present your portfolio. They don't pay what they used to. That's the big deal. Back in the day, they'd be print ads, and you make a lot more money on print ads, and it was rights managed. Now it's royalty free. So you got royalty free, and you've got those micro stocks. So you don't make a lot per image, but you sell quite a few. If you have a good shot, Darius and I was talking about that. If you got a good shot, you can sell thousands of times. All right. Some, your average is maybe sell 100 to 200 times in this lifetime. So getting back to it, how you start in it, you have to present your portfolio to say Shutterstock or Getty. But with microstock, you could sell the same image to as many different agencies as you like. With Getty rights managed, that's not microstock. It's exclusive to Getty, so you can't have such a wide spectrum of agencies to sell to. And the reason why I got into it is my kids. It was '97. My kids were fairly young, and being a photographer is kind of like being a farmer. It's kind of up and down. So I wanted to kind of even out my cash flow, and so stock photography helped with that because I knew approximately how much I would be getting each month from stock. And so in the early days, it was great. But my best year in stock was 2007 because of print ads and sales for that. And that was rights managed based on what the image was going to be used for. So anyway, that's in a nutshell.
I think a lot of people, I find people who don't know about stock think that there's a business model there, and there is a business model there, but it's not what it used to be. And I think it's partly a volume issue. You got to shoot a lot. And I think also you have to know the market of what is being bought for stock. Mm-hmm. So, if you take the same photos that everybody takes, like I live in a tourist town, everybody stands on the bridge here and takes a picture of the Napa River. Well, that's just not going to sell.
No, that's not what you're making your money at. You're not making money off of scenics. You're making money off of shots of windows, of interiors.
Yeah.
That's what we do. So that's where you're making your money from those shots. And you get a property release.
Yeah. Or you can do travel, but that stock model is pretty grim.
Yeah, it's flooded.
Yeah, it's totally flooded because everybody's out there traveling, taking pictures. And so, yeah, I agree. So these business models are tricky, but then as we've talked about, and I'm sensitive too because I teach it, is there isn't any business training, for in the art schools or the tech schools, or for that matter, lawyer schools don't teach marketing or business practices either. So just that's the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
Glenn, I personally use Pixie Set as a tool to sell stock, and I just have a tab on my website for new projects, and that takes the viewer to my Pixie Set site, where I have all of my projects, or not all of them, but all the recent projects, say over the last year or two, posted. And so they can go through there and then contact me and you can set it up so that they can actually make the stock purchase right there. I prefer to have them contact me personally, because I don't like having a price out there for an image when I've got somebody like Pixie negotiating prices for images for me. It doesn't work out very well. So I don't have it enabled so that somebody can actually download and make a payment right there on Pixie Set.
A lot of us, if the architectural gets a little slow, I mean, like I have a studio here, and we do other types of photography too. We'll do portraits and headshots, and I don't mind doing stuff like that. I mean, sometimes it can really fill the gaps if you are slow. Having offering other types of photography, or I don't think anything's objectionable about that at all. In fact, a lot of clients, corporate clients that we have, when they find out you can shoot headshots, you get that business as well. So besides the architectural.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Norman. That's one thing that did come out of the research I did about the photography market that I think I would probably believe in. It said that they were expecting a 40% uptick in headshot business in 2025, which is enormous. And that's something that's an easy add-on for an architectural photographer.
How would you get that kind of work with an architectural, with solely an architectural portfolio?
Well, you have to develop another portfolio.
Just, when I started out, I don't know how many of you guys started out shooting weddings, but we did weddings and models for years. And we had an architect in Michigan call us to shoot a gas station. And that's when I found Alan, Blakely's photography tips. And I emailed Alan a couple of times, and he was really helpful to help us out. That's how we got started doing architectural. But it just get a light kit. You could set it up in the room you're in and just start shooting some headshots. And it doesn't take much to build if you can learn the simple lighting ratios, it's easy to do a beautiful headshot.
Yeah.
And
then you put it on the website. I mean, I know some architectural photographers that do all different kinds of work and don't put it on their website. I put everything I do on my website, which I believe has probably damaged my ability to be an architectural photographer, to be honest. But I have a portrait section, and there's all different kinds of portraits, including really basic, seamless headshot style. Yeah, and I think you get hired based in part on proof that you know how to do a certain kind of work. So if you just stick it on the website and it's okay, he knows how to shoot a portrait.
Yeah, we'll shoot, if a model calls and they got an agent and they want us to do a portfolio for them or a comp card, bring them in. I don't have any problem with that. It's work. Work is work, and I love what we do. So it doesn't.
So the executive or the portraits that I do for architects, most of the time is location in their studio, they're in their office. So it's a double winner, because I'm doing the shoot, plus I'm talking to them. And like Norman says, it's all about networking. It's about FaceTime. Who do you know over the years that has sold something to you? And it's not usually on the email. It's usually on a phone call or in person. So when we do these portraits, we're there talking about more than just the portrait. So it's a win-win.
It is. Yeah. You get an executive, you're going to get a nice lifestyle shoot out of it. It can really be lucrative. So and then you're in. You're into the whole company, because you'll be doing the staff, the key personnel, the marketing people. You can. It can be really, really good for you. So I don't see anything Oh, I mean, Alan, like he said, he started a whole company doing headshots once. So
Yeah, I brought this up before.
yeah.
I started out as commercial, a general commercial photographer, mostly doing product and food photography, and then added in architecture little by little. But we did a lot of headshots in the studio, and then when I closed my last studio and was doing only architecture, I still had my lighting kit and a good portfolio of images, and I just rebranded as a different company called Salt Lake Headshots, and that just really took off, so much so that I had to sell it because it was too much of a job. But that was, I mean, we did headshots for all of our clients, and then also we would get business from companies I'd never heard of that would have us come in, and we may shoot for a day or 3 days or something like that, and we'd get to know everybody. And then inevitably a year later, somebody had left the company and called us in for headshots for the new company. So it was an amazing business model and so simple to do.
It's a great supplement for any photographer.
I think you can diversify for sure, but you just can't water down so much that you're trying to be all things to all people, in my mind. But like while we're meeting here, I'm looking at Darius's website, and he establishes himself as a very, very good architectural photographer. So when you get down after, healthcare, education, civic, drone, you get down to people, he's got great people shots, and it doesn't take away from his architecture because his architecture shots are fabulous. So,
Thank you, Clay.
but if you start adding in weddings and 10 other things, then it would water it down. But I don't think, like there's a perfect case if it's not watering it down at all.
We've always had a lifestyle and people section on our website, and it doesn't. I don't think it's interfered with. I think it's enhanced our ability when someone calls us because we can do more than just the architecture. So.
Well, and I've gotten shots. Been getting work doing construction progress, which is I love doing. But I also, when you're shooting people, by default, you're meeting the people. I've done architecture jobs where I never met anybody, especially if they come from out of town. So there's no human interaction, and that human interaction can make a huge difference in terms of getting hired a second or third or fourth time. And with architecture, yes and no. Or I think we've also had the experience, if you meet the architect or the interior designer, you get started in the morning, they say they'll be there all day. And then, about 9 a.m. or so, they go, excuse me, I got to answer this text. And then they start making phone calls. And by 11, they say, you know what to do, right? I'll see you. We'll see the images when you're done, and they leave. So having that human interaction is just completely critical. Plus, because they get to see you're a decent, that you have manners, you don't drool, you know how to behave. Well, I don't drool in public anyway.
Speak for yourself, right?
But I mean, sometimes you get hired by people, and you're essentially the representative of the agency or the company or whatever it is. So if you know how to behave and you look okay and you dress well, then you're not going to embarrass the company. You reflect well back on them. And that's true even with like a communications person inside an architecture firm, that marketing person.
So look into 2025. I mean, if you were to give advice to somebody up and coming about what to do or where to go, I mean, is there something that piece of advice as we get towards the end of this podcast here?
Yeah, you say I like how you say that someone is up and coming. Look at us. We're the young guys.
Yeah.
No, there are no young guys. I mean, they're just. I'm 60. I'll be 63. I mean, they're just. It's like I don't see any. I go into. I get a lot of work from some young guys that shoot architectural, and the client's not happy with the work, and they'll call us, and they'll come and they'll pay us a second time to shoot it again.
Oh, sure.
And because the young guys don't want to work at it, your images. you should go to an architectural's website. It should just blow you away. I mean, you know, they pay us for the perfection. And a lot of guys don't want to work that hard. You know, they want to shoot it and hand you the disc or the card off the camera. And that's, you know, so I want to find a young guy that wanted to do architectural because, you know, we have some people call us and photographers and we can help them out, but I don't see a lot of young guys, Alan.
I don't know if does 53 count as young?
Yeah, you're a baby.
Yeah, you are.
I mean, I would still say I'm up and coming for the amount of work, you know, sort of I get. There's two pretty established folks here in St. Louis, one of which is Sam Fentress. I don't know if any of you know his work, but Sam and I are friends, and he does great work, and he works for all the firms that I sort of get, you know, the other work from. But you know, yeah, I mean, I'm interested to hear any advice. I mean, the stuff about the headshots and that, especially Alan. I mean, if you said that, you know, that's you saw when you were researching that's that the growth in that is significant versus the other.
Yeah, and
you know, for me, that was really helpful advice because that's something that I have done before, but it's not something that I market for.
The analysis behind that was that people were going to be wanting higher quality headshots for social media and also, you know, for whatever professional use they have, that it wasn't good enough to just have their selfie anymore. And so people are looking for a higher quality, and that's where we can really make some inroads. And you know, just one thing that I've kind of always lived by is that the idea that the best competitive advantage that you can ever have, as far as growing your business and marketing your work, is just by doing great work. If you do great work, the work is going to come in. You'll end up getting new clients and better clients and more clients, and so ultimately that's really what it's about. And I remember getting kind of the leftovers from other photographers, and when I first started out, and after a while I was getting the top tier jobs. And so it's just about pushing harder and working harder than the other guy most of the time to do a better job of it. And it's hard work, and like Norman said, I'm not seeing a whole lot of people headed that direction coming into it. When I first my first couple studios, I would have the universities in my local area would contact me. They'd want to come and visit. They'd want me to talk to their students and things like that. That hasn't happened for 15 years. I haven't heard from anybody. And my guess is because they don't see any value in it. Either the professors don't, or the students don't, or both.
Not when they think they're going to make $20,000 a year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they don't know really what the business is about. There's so few that are doing it the way we're doing it, and we're talking about it now publicly, but generally people don't have that information. And so if they see a YouTube influencer who says, you know, you can make $20,000 in your spare time doing this, well, yeah, big deal. So I could do that at McDonald's. So
I was at an AIA meeting last night, and someone asked me, there was a little group around me asking me questions about photography, and somebody said, do you have to be an architect before you can become an architectural photographer? And I said, I only wish.
You have to be a musician.
And then I did tell them that no, most of the absolute best architectural photographers were never an architect.
How many of you are musicians?
Not at all.
That's shocking, because you know the creative side of you. You know I could see that. I know a lot of photographers. They're all musicians. Yeah,
I can say generally that as far as our entire membership goes,
yeah,
majority have a musician background.
Yeah,
and one other odd thing, the majority have cats as opposed to dogs, which
yeah,
which is interesting too.
Yeah, I like seeing Brian's cats in the background.
Brian's cat has a thing about getting in camera every time we have him on, so that's always great. Well, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you for joining today, and thanks for all the information you've shared. This has really been helpful, and hopefully this will be helpful to those that listen. I posted that we've come up to number 68 in the top 100 photography podcasts. So I thought that was amazing. As far that's the entire world of podcasts, and so I think that's excellent. I'm not sure it's making a big difference, but
Lucy has a 38.
It makes us.
There is another.
But the information, I get email regularly from people who say, I just stumbled on this podcast. This is the best information I've ever found. And so thank you for being so generous with your expertise and your thoughts and advice. We'll wrap this up here. We're going to continue to talk on the backside of this broadcast. But I want to wish everyone well and hope that you have a wonderful holiday season, and we'll see you again after the first of the year.
This has been another episode of A Photographer's Life. If you've enjoyed this program, please let us know by liking this episode and subscribing to this channel. A Photographer's Life is brought to you by the Association of Independent Architectural Photographers. This episode is copyrighted and may not be used in full or in part without the written permission of the AIAP. Please join us again soon for another inside look at the world of professional architectural photography.